everyone. Joining us now is David Weinstein. He is a former assistant U.S. attorney and is currently with the Hinshaw law firm. And Charles Zelden, a political science expert from Nova University. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. David, let me start with you. What argument is there to not call John Bolton after these revelations about his book?
If you're the Republicans, the argument is he's got nothing to add. It wasn't something that was made part of the original articles of impeachment that was passed by the House. What he has to say is his opinion. He didn't necessarily overhear it. You've got everything that's there. That's the argument not to call him. From the Republicans, quite frankly, if you have a witness who has information about what the person who is being charged with an offense has said or did, as the prosecutor, you want to call that person. So there's no reason they wouldn't want to call him and let him give his testimony. And then as a juror, you can weigh his testimony however you'd like. Is he credible? Is he supported by other facts? And you decide for yourself.
And he said he's willing to testify, too.
And that's going to be a problem for them when they try and claim executive privilege. If he's willing to testify, that sort of takes the steam out of that.
Well, Charles, you're up. Without Bolton, do Democrats have a case?
Well, without Bolton or other witnesses, they're unlikely to get a conviction. They are lacking, well, the person who was in the room where decisions were made. Bolton is one of those. Mulvaney is another. In the case of Bolton, though, based on what we're hearing about the book, he probably also has an awful lot of contemporaneous notes, which carry a lot of weight, if they're written at the time, about what the president was saying. And for the Democrats, their whole goal was to try and get these witnesses in to bolster what they already had from the witnesses who spoke in the House impeachment hearings, and just strengthen the case that the president knew what he was doing, did what he was doing, and is now trying to cover up what he did.
David, let me ask you, today we saw the former Attorney General of the state of Florida, Pam Bondi, who she got up there and she brought out all the dirt on Hunter Biden and said, let's not focus on these impeachment charges. Look at this over here. Look what Hunter Biden did over here. Is that a I'm sure that's a tactic that you've seen in court before. Will it work in an impeachment trial?
I've seen it on both sides. And, you know, take a quote from Jane Raskin, another Florida lawyer who was presenting here at the Senate today. That's what a defense attorney is supposed to do. Part of what you have is try and distract the jurors, or in this case, the senators, from looking at the evidence that's being presented to them, and then bring up the bad things that are happening around and distract from the evidence that's against your client. I'm not surprised at all that she spent that much time talking about all the dirt on Hunter Biden, but be careful what you ask for, because a lot of what she talked about that Biden is accused of doing, in her words, is exactly what the president is accused of doing in the articles of impeachment here, and in his abuse of power, and even some of his family is perhaps, if you stretch the facts a little bit, accused of doing. So they may be spilling more dirt on the Bidens and what happened there, but it's also going to cause some dirt to get spilled on the president.
And finally, Charles, Ken Starr, a key figure in Clinton's impeachment, he talked a lot today about why impeachment is a bad thing. What do you have to say about that message?
Well, impeachment is always a bad thing when it's your guy being impeached. When it's the other side being impeached, it's actually not such a bad idea. It's actually a good idea. We've seen switches between the parties depending on who's being impeached. But at the core, you have to ask yourself, what is the nature of the charges? What is the evidence being provided? And is this something serious enough that the Republic needs for that president to be removed? In the Clinton case, the decision was it just wasn't significant enough. In this case here, the Democrats are making a strong case that it is. The Republicans are trying to argue it isn't. The senators will have to make a decision, and then everyone's going to face the ultimate jury, which is we the people.
Before we go, either one of you want to tell me about the role of John Roberts? And he's just a referee here. Do either of you expect that we'll hear from John Roberts to intervene somehow?
Well, technically, he has the authority to do it. There's written into the provisions, the rules for impeachment, he's actually given almost total control over subpoenas. If the senators disagree, they have to object with a 2/3 vote. The question is, does John Roberts want to do that? And I suspect the last thing he wants to do is be the person who decides the outcome of this situation.
Not even to be on the record, just stating that he felt that was the right thing to do?
He doesn't need to be on the record. They've drawn him into this. He's in his position because of his position. He's not going to weigh in on this by himself. If they want an answer from some judges, they're going to have to take it up through the district court system and let several judges decide what's going on. Roberts is not going to make the decision.
Okay.
Thank you guys for joining us and providing your insight.
You're welcome.
Thank you both
Glad
very
to.
much.